Welcome to the Art of Lifting podcast. Today I am joined again by Peej. You did come on here, I think it was pretty much a year ago to the day that you came on, I think. And last time you came on, we went through your background, kind of your journey through the sport. So if anyone wants to hear all of that, do go back and listen to that episode. Thought today we could have a little bit more of a catch up. You've had a very successful 2025, had some amazing success with your lifters. Also, we're going to just kind of go somewhat chronological order, which I never stick to. Coaching at World Games. So first classic World Games. I'm assuming the first time you've coached at the World Games. I don't think you coached equipped there before. So I wanted to ask you what that was like as a coach. We've had some athletes on. So I think the coach perspective would be really cool to hear as well.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Secondly, I'll try and live up to that wonderful intro. It was a good year, I can't lie. But yeah, we will get to what we get to. World Games. Honestly, having spoken to pretty much all of the athletes since and reflecting on it, both with like Matt Gary and the athletes who went through, it was I suppose the way that I would describe it, and I think Christian and Julian's were like the first two people to kind of describe it this way publicly, but it kind of like showed me what powerlifting could be if it was treated, you know, to like a high budget Olympic sport type of standard. That's not to, you know, slate anything else that's going on. It's more just to say like the way that they had everything organized and everything was thought of, it was honestly amazing. And I mean, there are two kind of factors that were at play, I think, largely there. Number one, it being in China, they were like oversubscribed with volunteers. They really like, you could tell that it was huge money going into it, and it was like a big kind of national pride kind of thing. So that was amazing. But I mean, you know, sometimes it was like there are so many people around just to help all the time. Like you couldn't go anywhere without, you know, stumbling into anyone. And then there was food available pretty much all day with like macros in this kind of like buffet canteen, shuttle buses to the venue. Yeah, I mean, everything you could have ever imagined asking for at an event, like surrounding the actual lifting itself, was incredible. Which is also why I think we saw through most of our athletes some really good like uplifts in performance, because it was like everything was just kind of taken care of for days and days beforehand. Even though the timing around like Worlds and whatever else wasn't great in terms of like back-to-back peaks, some of the guys and girls performed immensely well, like kind of above and beyond where you would expect them to, you know, given everything else. And I think that was part of it. And then, yeah, just the scale of it, that was crazy. We were in like the equivalent of kind of like what I would describe as like an indoor sports arena. So if anyone's ever gone to like a basketball game, like a professional basketball game, like kind of set up, like the stadium capacity in there was probably 10 or 12,000, you know, which is a lot. So like similar sort of size to like the Copper Box Arena in London, if everyone's ever been there. You know, huge jumbotron, tiered seating for like rows and rows and rows. Was insane. And then even at the venue, they had like a break room that was just like fully stocked with everything for all the athletes, like electrolyte drinks, water, ice packs, food everywhere. Like it was crazy. And the warm-up room was just basically like an entire sports hall full of like, I think they had like 28 brand new Eleiko like full sets, which was just silly, like considering, you know, the number of athletes that were there. So that I think they had something like 10 racks. So every athlete, or it might have been 12, I can't remember. Every athlete basically had their own platform, their own rack, full shebang. And then at all times, there were like an additional like 14 training platforms available. So it was like overkill, but kind of in the best way. So that was really cool. And yeah, I mean, China was different, but it was super cool. And even then, like they had like throughout the airports, if you had like a World Games tag, you got like fast tracked. You had your own lane through the airport. Like it was crazy. They were doing the most. And then obviously the lifting was amazing, and so grateful to be a part of that. Yeah, something that, I mean, I hope I get to go to the next one, but if I only get to go to that one, then, you know, it's kind of like the tick box done. Yeah, really special time Very, very grateful for that. The only thing is like generally around China, the protein sources were kind of hard to come by outside of the athlete village. I think that's just like a cultural food thing. But it was super, super cool. Yeah. And the performances of the team were on the whole just amazing. To see, like, I mean, those lifters are amazing and you see them at like a world's level, but to see those guys perform at like, you know, kind of Sheffield level standard, like the best of the best are here, that was really, really cool. So yeah, it was a lot of travel last year, but that was a very, very cool part of it for sure.
Yeah, I think as well, people have said, you know, I think the next one's in Germany, and a lot of people have said, you know, because of the fact that one was in China, it was that extra bit special, and you knew everyone had gone above and beyond to make it in the way you guys were all treated. But like they're like, oh, I don't think Germany will compare, which we don't know that yet. Hopefully it does. But I think having that as the first classic just really made it a spectacle. Now I feel like everyone's going to want to go to the next one, whereas before, like a lot of people for different reasons didn't obviously go to this one. Hopefully now the next time it comes around, people will be a lot more willing to put that more importance, because I think a lot of people were saying it just wasn't as important as other meets they were going to do. Whereas now I think that's definitely become a major spectacle within the sport.
Yeah, there were some people had some like visa issues and stuff as well. I mean, gosh, I don't want to talk about politics, but I think a few of the Americans didn't go because of that, and a couple of the US folks who were invited have like military jobs or military associations, which kind of meant that they couldn't go to China. But you know, it's one of those things. I mean, I went from World Games to Junior Worlds, and then Junior Worlds on my way back, which was in Costa Rica. I stopped in New York, and I got absolutely grilled in New York. Like, why were you in China? What were you doing? Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I can see it from like the US in particular point of view, but I think there was a lot of FOMO off the back of it. I don't think, nobody really knew what to expect, but to see that it was at that level, and obviously the way that we're all kind of speaking about it, like for me, that was a very, very special event. So yeah, I do think that, you know, the World Games in general is like a pretty big step up from kind of like IPF Worlds. But I think, again, IPF Worlds can kind of vary. The standard can vary quite significantly depending on how much budget they have, you know, the venue, the location, etc. So like if I was to compare, say, Malta in 23, that was unbelievable, because basically Malta, like the Fed had just sponsored the IPF as like one of their primary sponsors. So they put tons and tons of money in. So we had a really, really similar situation where like custom platforms, brand new kit everywhere. I think there were like 18 brand new racks, and everything was like super, super slick, and it was super high energy, huge venue, kind of like China, just slightly smaller scale, but it was IPF Worlds. And that IPF Worlds was so special as well. So, you know, I think it just kind of depends on who hosts it and budget a lot of the time, which I hope as the sport grows, the budget can grow, because the athletes who do end up going there, it's not easy to get to Worlds. And, you know, I really, really hope that their achievement of just getting there, even if you finish 15th, 20th, whatever, it's still a massive achievement. And that should be kind of celebrated within the confines of the, you know, the experience and the event itself. So I hope that those athletes kind of do get that. I'm sure that people have pretty publicly complained about IPF Worlds this year. I've definitely done that. And, you know, that was kind of the other side of that coin, I suppose. You know, that was not great in terms of the organization, the setup, the racks in the warm-up room, the care for the athletes just wasn't really there. So yeah, that was a bit of a shame.
Yeah. I guess you'll know more than me on this. Is that becoming a more rare thing though? Because I guess before that was probably the standard, right? With the rise of the other, like even Sheffield, the athlete experience there. Obviously now seeing how World Games the athletes were treated, how Worlds was in Malta set a really high standard as well. It is slowly going to become the norm, hopefully, that athletes get at least treated a lot more as athletes rather than just like a visitor type thing.
Yeah, so having had kind of conversations kind of in the back room and chatting to like in Germany, like the, you know, the guys and girls that were like kind of helping run the event, I think some of it was budget constraints. I don't really think that the person who was running the meet had enough money to do what they needed to be able to do. But you know, we were on ATX racks in the warm-up room, And then, this is IPF Worlds, and then you're going out to a completely different pad on the platform. And you're not talking like local meet, like, you have to warm up in a power rack. It's not like that. It's like, this is, this should just be standardized. That should just be something that is just, you have to have the same racks in the warm-up room as you do on the platform to host a Worlds level meet. Like, in my opinion, that should just be a rule, and there should be no difference. There should be identical X number of racks that's exactly the same as one on the platform, and everybody has the same. But instead, people end up battling for platforms. People end up trying to like lift on one thing because it's most similar to this one or whatever. At an IPF Worlds, that just doesn't feel like it should be the thing, especially with being demonstrated how well it can be done, and it's clearly within budget to do that. Sometimes, and again, you don't know exactly the division of labor and where the money goes, but you're a bit like, you tried to cut corners here and probably like a couple of things that you shouldn't. And it's the middle of or late June, so it was like so hot, and we're in like a sports arena that has AC, but they didn't turn the AC on, and you're like, turn on the air conditioning, and you're dealing with an 8-man 120 plus flight. The smallest guy in that flight's 160 kilos, and they've got 7 minutes to go out, squat 380, and then go out and squat 400. And we're having to like get ice packs and like douse these guys down, or adjust our game day strategy so that my guy can get 10 minutes rest and push everybody else forward or whatever. And it's just like, that side of things should just be taken care of. And it's not really a lot. You're hosting a sports event, like, just have an environment in which an athlete can perform to their best ability, which is, it's not really a lot to ask for air conditioning, or, at least a temperature controlled environment of some sort. So, again, we had to get a little bit crafty with stuff, putting them in like dark. So there were like a couple of like, almost like corridors out of the back of the warm-up room that were like kind of dark and cool. So we would end up like having our lifter come out of this corridor, do a couple warm-ups, and then go back in there and sit and chill, because it was like 6 or 7 degrees cooler in there than it was in the warm-up area. But again, like, if I don't know, if you were a smaller nation, you hadn't been there all week and you hadn't had a chance to find that stuff out, your like prime superstar athlete might just tank because they didn't have that. So anyway, I don't want to moan too much, but I do hope that it continues to elevate. And like you said, with events like, Malta doing more events, and like World Games displaying how good it can be, I really, really hope that other feds are like, okay. And also that the IPF, from a infrastructure standpoint, starts to standardize these things more. Yeah. Because the other thing I think that will happen is there'll be this really positive trickle down effect, right? Where member nations will be like, oh, we were at IPF Worlds and they did this, this, and this, so we want to try to make our nationals that way. Like, I mean, this year's British Nationals, credit to the people that ran that. Like, that was by far and away the best British Nationals that I've ever been a part of, and I've been doing this quite a long time. Yeah, that was like, that felt like an international, to be honest. Outside of the 2 platform thing, like, that felt like, pretty close to an international standard of meet, which is the way it should be if we want to be one of the best nations in the world competing on that type of stage, right? We need to familiarize our athletes with that and that level and those standards, which, again, credit where it's due, those guys are doing great work. So yeah, it's happening. It's just inconsistent.
Yeah, it's obviously going to take time, but also we've both been around long enough to know that actually in the last 3-4 years, there's massive changes, let alone the last 6, 7, 8 years. Huge changes between like my first ever nationals at Morton College, back in the day, it was like 2018, I think I did my first nationals, to now, worlds apart, especially I think that was juniors as well, so it was even another level entirely. And you look at junior nationals now, the standard is so different just on the British scale. But you're completely right, and it is definitely a trickle down as well. And I think comps like Sheffield, World Games, Malta, as we said, they have shown what's possible, and we're not far from being able to do that. I guess it's just countries with their budgets, where things are going to go, having standardized things in place. But I guess it will come with time, and it'll be interesting to see in another 4 or 5 years, right? Like, it should be worlds apart again.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is the IPF are making a bit of an effort, it seems anyway, to distribute world events outside of Europe a little bit more. So like, as an example, like I would imagine Dubai has a relatively big budget just because it's Dubai, right? So I would imagine they're going to put on a pretty good display similar to that of, Malta, just because the budget's there to do a big event. So, I mean, fingers crossed, they do, and they do deliver on that front. But like you said, venues are improving, standard of events are improving. And ultimately, for me, the big thing is, all this stuff. And I try to talk about, like, it's really, really cool, this like high performance international stuff. But really, the stuff that really, really matters in terms of long-term development of the sport is like, well, what are all these people that are maybe outside of the top 3 are British, but are 4th to 15th? Like, they're the people that really are like the people that are actually really realistically going to push the sport forward in the short to medium term. Because whoever's going to win is going to win, right? Like, they're the professional footballers of the powerlifting world. But it's like the grassroots stuff is like, oh, I'm going to try to get to British, which is again a great step that I think they've taken in terms of making that a bigger deal. And the fact that it's competitive to get there now is really, really good. Because again, I do think when we saw that last year, right, in 2025, we saw this like trickle down. So like, as an example, I was at the Southern qualifiers, and it was like, normally a meet like that, would just be like this kind of higher level local meet that people kind of cared about, but like, it didn't really matter. It was more about the athlete themselves and, what total they could put up, or, could they go 9 flying PBs, etc. And actually, like the game playing and if I finish in the top wherever here, I actually get a ticket to British, and I need to make sure that I do better than this other person who did the Northerns or whatever, which was really, really cool, because it kind of like creates this tiered system of competing, right? Or like, I won the Southerns, so now I can get my ticket to the British. And it's the same with like the Scottish Championships, the Welsh Championships, etc. Like, I had a client, Jess Conti, under 63 in Scotland, and it was like this big, I think 3 or 4 way battle where like all the girls were like really, really like duking it out for their spot at the British, which is like so cool. Whereas normally you'd like go to the Scottish, and obviously there could be that battle there, but it was like you win the Scottish and then it didn't really mean anything. Whereas now it like punches your ticket to go somewhere else. And it creates this kind of like Pokemon evolution almost, do you know what I mean, of competitions, which I think is great. So yeah, I mean, long may that continue, as long as we can kind of keep feeding in from the bottom so that these people kind of keep getting pushed up and up and up. I think we're going to be in a really, really good spot. And ultimately that's where powerlifting grows from, right? You're not going to find your Joy Namani's just sitting in a random pure gym, at that level. It's nowadays, I think you're going to kind of get these people that can get to a British maybe in year 1, year 2, year 3, and can just about get to a British, and then they can look to kind of climb that level. It's gone are the days of like, you rock up and you're just a strong guy in the gym that can go and win a British championship. Like, that's, to be honest, I don't know if that's ever been a thing, but you used to be able to kind of be close to that, which I don't think is really a thing anymore. So that bodes very, very well, I think, as long as you can like commit to the sport,
Yeah, even on that as well, like trickling down even to a regional level, because I don't know if they're keeping it this way, but you could qualify for British for the extra spots with a regional total, powering through. They always do a great regional anyway, but the regional in September was the last weekend to qualify. And I remember, I think it was the 93 men, there was a battle for the British spots, and like there were number games going on at a regional, which never usually happens. Usually it's just turn up and just kind of do what you can, right? There were literally number games going on all the way down to a regional level, which is just going to keep happening with this system, and it's just going to keep pushing people to compete higher and higher. And then if you do that regional, and let's say it's your first ever meet of the 93 and you're nowhere near these guys, you're still competing in this flight, watching this battle firsthand, and that's going to fuel your training and your competitions even more, rather than just turning up to a regional that doesn't matter.
Right. Or you get a bunch of people who just total, I don't know, an arbitrary total, so everybody just rocks up and nobody tries hard, and everybody totals 600 just to punch their ticket to go to the next place, or whatever it happens to be, right? And that's something that has been spoken about for years and years and years. I remember chatting to Dean Bowring back in like 2017 about this, 2018, and now like Ben Davis and JBS kind of proposed this. I think it was maybe like, was it last year was the first year, right? But I think it got proposed in 2024.
Yeah.
And we knew there were always going to kind of be like little implementation, sticky errors, whatever. But like, I think largely that's been a massive success. And like you said, if we can create more and more of this last ditch qualifier, who's going to get the spot, and it being like a big deal to go to the British, that is a really, really, really good thing. And again, I think it encourages participation at what were kind of competitions that should have, in my opinion, been held in higher regard, that are now like a big deal. So like, there will be probably every year a battle for who can win the English and who can win the Southerns, who can win the Northerns, who can win the Scottish. Whereas I think a lot of the time people would kind of take or leave it, which is a thing. And I mean, you would see a little bit more of an uptick in like Commonwealth years. So like, I think this year's a Commonwealth year. So we'll probably see like double trouble happening, right? Like people are going to really be going for both the biggest total that they can and the win, and trying to kind of like punch their ticket to both of those things. And again, it's a huge advocate. Like for me, like, it used to be, Commonwealth didn't really used to be that much of a big deal. Back in, I'm going to show my age now, but like back in like 2015, like I was even able to do it, and I was never really much of a lifter. And then like, these days it's like, oh, like you got your nation singlet. And again, like SBD making those like cool individual different country singlets as well. Like the Scottish and the Welsh one are both so cool. They look so good, and that's such a big deal. And now we've like created this level of like, don't really know what the word is, but there's like a prestige around being able to represent your country. Whereas like Commonwealth used to kind of feel a bit like, again, we're talking 2015, we're not talking a long time ago, but it used to kind of feel a bit like, well, yeah, you just went and like, you could just go. Do you know what I mean? You just applied and you could get the spot, and it wasn't really like a thing. And I'm talking about myself here more than anything, but yeah. So yeah, I think that again, the trickle down has kind of happened, and I think will only hopefully continue to happen. We just need to be careful, and myself especially, like about trying not to kind of become too elitist, because people like to see your successes with like the big names and the big guns, but actually like really the heart of powerlifting is a level or two down from that, right? They're the people that are volunteering at meets, they're the people that are helping out, they're the people that like are in it for the love of the game. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I even think from the growth perspective as well, they're also the fans of the sport. They're the ones driving both sides, both like the social media, like the overall growth of people entering the sport is coming from like uni scene, prime example. The amount of like beginners that just get involved at uni because a couple of their friends do it, even if they're competing at a lower level, whatever level they're at, like you're going to bring more and more numbers. The reason the numbers are expanding isn't because the standards are rising at the top level. Like obviously you have like the big stars that are bringing more eyes to it anyway, but generally people aren't going to be seeing on their algorithm these high level powerlifters unless they're already in the gym training. So yeah, the growth from the lower level is always going to be more important, and what then drives it. And it all trickles down and all impacts each other, right?
Absolutely agree. Yeah, 100%. But again, things like, gyms and clubs, there are certain gyms that are responsible that also have powerlifting clubs. I mean, Nottingham Strong's an amazing example of that. Like that in and of itself is probably really, really pushed and grown like post-COVID. And I mean, they probably contribute generally to the sport of powerlifting more broadly speaking. Like I know that I'm pretty heavily like IPF pilled, but like in general, there's just lots of people that do powerlifting. And that is really, really good. But then also like people come from Nottingham Trent and Nottingham Uni, and they, compete. And then you get this whole like rivalry between the two unis. You get powerlifting clubs within that. Then you get people that are just kind of generally training. More people see powerlifting. It's as close to like grassroots as we can hope for, right? Like, are we ever going to get to the point where you see like, well, if it was like American, you'd talk at like pee-wee camps, like 5-6-year-olds going to like football camps and stuff in the summer. We're probably not going to see that for powerlifting, but if we can create more and more access to people that are younger and like college students, again, if you're a college student, you go into the gym and you step into Nottingham Strong for the first time and you see some of the people that train there and you're like into, bodybuilding culture, strength culture in general, you'll see it and be like, oh, like this is where I need to be because I see this person that I follow on social media, or, that lift was crazy or whatever it happens to be. And I think, again, that's for me, I very much think like if we can increase the number of people participating in powerlifting, that only is a good thing. Even if you're aware that powerlifting is going to be somewhat transient, like most people's careers aren't 10 years long. Most people are in it for 2 to 4 years and then they'll move on, and that's fine. But again, if we have more and more and more of those people, then you have more and more people that hang around for 5+ years, and then you get more and more, development of the sport long term, which I definitely think is a good thing. And again, shout out to places like that, right? There are gyms and there are coaches that are fighting those battles every day to keep the sport going at a grassroots level and getting more barbells in more people's hands, which I think is a fantastic thing. So yeah, I feel like I've spoken about this a lot in general over the years, but I've seen it kind of happen, and I think it's a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, 100% agree. I'm going to steer the conversation because I feel like we'll stay on this topic for the whole episode, if not. I wanted to ask you about some of your athletes' success over the last few months. You've had some very, very successful athletes, obviously, on your team. Not just you, but JJ as well under Battalion Barbell. I thought we could start with Junior Worlds. I'm going to forget people here. So you said you went straight from World Games in China to Junior Worlds.
Yeah, almost.
Near
I had
enough,
a couple days
yeah.
in Hong Kong, but yeah, almost pretty much. I came home. I think I was home for 3 days. The jet lag was gnarly. I can tell you that much. But yeah, so straight off the back of World Games. So didn't have any athletes competing at World Games. Obviously, I've known loads of athletes on the team. That was great. They smashed it. Couldn't be prouder of how they showed up as a team, and that was a really, really cool bonding experience. Spent loads of time together. Saw some really, really cool things. Came home for a couple of days, straight off the back of Hong Kong, and then flew out to Costa Rica. So, gosh, I need to pull up. Hold on, I'm going to pull up my Instagram very, very quickly and find out who we actually had there. But we did have.
I have actually got it up. I think.
Have you? Okay.
Well,
good hosting.
I know, on the ball. So one of JJ's lifters, Lucian.
Yeah,
I believe in the 83 sub junior, and then Amelia Fox, 57 junior for GB. Yes. And Betty, Netherlands, under 63. Can't forget about Betty because she's had a phenomenal year.
Yeah, she smashed it. She really has.
I've just gone off of that post.
Quite a bit. So, yeah, I mean, the guys did really, really well. So I think I was only in Hong Kong. Sorry, not Hong Kong. I was only in Costa Rica for a few days. I basically flew in near enough the night before, coached Amelia personally, and wanted to be there for Betty. Betty had a really crazy head-to-head with Natalie Hunter, who's an absolutely exceptional athlete, and yeah, came away with a win. That was my first IPF world champion, actually. So when I kind of freaked out a little bit when she pulled that final deadlift, and I ran straight out to the back and was didn't really know what to do with myself. I was quite overwhelmed. But yeah, I mean, that was an amazing experience. Betty, to her credit, just when she started working with me quite a while ago now, I think she applied to work with me after her world's performance in Romania, which I think would have been 2023. And I remember we spoke about a few things, and on her application form, she was like, I think I'd like to be top 3 in the world one day. And obviously since then she's won 2 European championships and a world championship. So she's done amazingly well. She now, off the back of Junior Euros, has reclaimed her deadlift world record. She's exceptional. I do really, really think that she's going to be able to do some amazing things. But not only that, she's the Netherlands have implemented something. They've got a grant of some sort from the government over there. So I think it's something like if you finish top 5 in the world, you get this kind of government grant, and effectively you're a sports person for the Netherlands. So she's able to receive some sort of bursary from the government as well now. So again, fingers crossed that can start to become more and more pervasive. I don't think it's quite enough of a full-time salary necessarily, but I definitely do think that it's something that allows some of those folks over there in the Netherlands to, instead of necessarily needing to work full-time, they can maybe work part-time, or, they can, use it to promote more recovery or whatever, which is unbelievable. Obviously Amelia did super, super well as well. I'm not massively familiar with how Lucian did, because I got there and he'd already lifted. But yeah, being able to kind of share that experience and kind of be there with the team was really cool, as much as I was super duper jet lagged. one thing I will say is like normally, you know, if you go to like a hotel breakfast, the coffee is normally terrible. In Costa Rica, it was absolutely exceptional. And I spoke to one of the staff and they were like, oh yeah, we get the beans from like 20 minutes away. And I was like, oh, like, that makes sense. This coffee is just super, super fresh. But no, really, really cool country. Like the general vibe of the place was pretty good, pretty cool. And yeah, like I said, it was, I'm really, really glad I went. I almost didn't go because of the timelines and whatever else, but so glad that I did. And yeah, to be able to share that experience with those guys was really, really cool. And I know how much it meant to Betty, and we both had a big cry afterwards, and it was nice. It was like a bit of a full circle moment. She had obviously also done IPF Open Worlds that year. And she's going to be going back. She kind of, as part of this kind of contract thing that she has with the Netherlands, she obviously has to do Euros and Worlds every year. So hopefully she can do well. She's nominated first currently for Open Euros. So my aim is to not let her down, and hopefully she can show up in a big way. And, you know, worst comes to worst, we'll stick a big weight on the deadlift and see what happens. And I mean, honestly, I truthfully, with both her, I'm going to jump forward timeline wise, but with her and a Quinn, I generally have absolutely no idea what either of those two actual top end deadlift is. Like, it's just, I'm just like, okay, we're just going to deadlift what we need to, and then one day we'll find out how much you can actually lift.
Yeah.
So yeah, very, very cool, very, very blessed. And yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Betty is an exceptional talent and works amazingly hard. So just very, very lucky, really, that, you know, for whatever reason, she decided to inquire with me, and here we are. So yeah.
I think it's really incredible as well. I've heard, I think she went on King of the Lift quite recently and spoke about the funding and like the salary kind of that they get. Even, I don't know what it was, and I think she spoke about it in quite a lot of detail, but like, even just to have the option to work like let's say 3 days a week, right, on top of getting this money and to cover you, like, even if you're living a fairly minimalist lifestyle, think how much, like, we see it with Agatha, full-time powerlifter. Obviously she's incredibly great without that, but having that benefit of then just not having to stress so much about making ends meet, paying the bills, having that like stress off your shoulders is only going to push the sport so much further. And someone as young as Beck, is she still a junior next year? I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. So she's in the Open.
So she's now going to the Open. So last year was her last year.
But to be in that position at 22, 23 years old, how long is she going to be in this sport for? Probably a long time. And just to have that there to support her is such an incredible thing for athletes. And hopefully more countries do similar, even if it's just a small portion of people's, like half of someone's rent or something. So it's half a day's work they then don't have to do, or something like that would be so incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I don't want to like sound like I'm super, super old, but I mean, even since I started in the sport, right, we have seen like primary sponsors like come in and start supporting lifters more and more and more. So like within the Open team, you know, SBD are able to help those guys out and kind of cover. They're not paid a salary, but they're also, you know, they're covering some of their expenses, or often all of their expenses. But also, you know, I mean, there's also like competitive rivalry, right? So these folks that are winning British and getting invites to these internationals, companies want to be associated with those athletes. So you're often seeing people like A7, shout out to my very, very good friend Owen, like runs the A7 Europe, obviously also a very, very good lifter in and of his own right. If you don't know Owen Hubbard, like rewind a few years, you should know who Owen Hubbard is. But, you know, somebody like him is then able to sponsor some of these other athletes, you know, who are also on the team, and able to, you know, help them out with certain things there as well. So you're kind of, we're seeing some of this kind of drive and competition, which is only a good thing. And again, it should force kind of everybody to elevate a little bit more. But I mean, you're absolutely right. Somebody like Betty, you know, if we could ever get into that position, or, you know, if UK sport was ever in a position to just be like, oh, here you go, British powerlifting, here's X amount of money, you know, distribute it however you kind of see fit, or, you know, we want to sponsor the top 10 athletes in the UK or whatever, then, you know, that could be amazing. And, you know, some of these folks are in a position where, you know, they have really, really good jobs, and they're somehow managing to juggle a lot of training and recovery needs and a high profile job. But, you know, that's not to say that if they didn't have to do that, they wouldn't be even better, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, back in the day a little bit, and even now, like you see some of these folks who are close to full-time powerlifters, you know, they might be like professional influencers, the kind of thing, you know, they have like brand deals and they have sponsorships, and or maybe they run a small company or whatever, that then they're able to do that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting the way that we're seeing it going. And I do think that this kind of like big push to try and kind of Olympic eyes, if that's not a word, but you know what I mean, like create it to be more and more Olympic like powerlifting in general, will potentially allow for things like that to happen, right? So where like ministries of sport are able to then recognize powerlifting, you know, World Games helped massively with that. We're in under this AIMS umbrella, which is like the feeder pool into the Olympics. Whether or not we'll actually ever get there, that's like another whole new topic. That's a whole big other discussion. But I think one of the big things that is worth thinking about is like a lot of these things that powerlifting more generally is trying to do. And I think the reason that there's kind of this IPF versus everybody else kind of vibe is because you have kind of two distinct factions within powerlifting, right? You have this kind of somewhat squeaky clean image. We're trying to get into the Olympics. We're trying to look like weightlifting. We're trying to do this on one side. And on the other side, you have like, I don't mean this in any kind of derogatory way. I actually think it's really freaking cool. But you have this kind of like backyard flamethrowers, heavy metal band playing, you know, iron plates clanging, whatever kind of spectacle side of powerlifting too, which is like on the other side. And I both think they massively have their own benefits. I just think that that's kind of like a bit of a crossroads that we're at. As the IPF grows more and more and more, you know, I think honestly that golf and that kind of like politicization on either side will probably only get greater. And I don't mind that. I think that's actually probably pretty good, because hopefully people will kind of find their lane. But no, I do think it's a good thing. And again, you know, like you said, to go all the way back, like Betty and the funding and generally, if that kind of keeps happening, I do really think we're going to see the sport continue to get elevated further and further and further. Yeah. You know, if we can get to a point where people are basically full-time athletes, things will really start shifting in a pretty massive way, I think. You know, we're getting close to seeing what would make sense in terms of genetically predisposed people to lifting really, really big heavy weights. Basically, people that are extremely well-muscled and well-leveraged, carry tons and tons of muscle, but are generally quite short because they don't have to move the bar as far, relative to their body weight, of course. That's going to be a big thing. And I mean, you know, if we take a couple of our British superstars, right, like you're not going to find many people that are as heavily muscled and weigh, you know, say what Ade weighs. Like Ade is like poster child of what a very, very good powerlifter could look like. And the same with Durance, right? Those two are both just like absolute studs. And you know, you see the same on the women's side, right? If you look at like a Bobby as an example, like jacked out of their mind, train really, really hard, clearly take care of their nutrition, and are just like, oh, it makes sense that you can do what you can do. You know, you're not really looking at people at IPF World being like, oh, that 300 kilo squat doesn't make sense. Like you look at them and you go, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, we're getting there, definitely. And I think it's only good in terms of growth.
Yeah, 100%. Going to fast forward a little bit more to, I don't think I'm missing anything in between. So we had Junior Euros and British Open same week, I believe.
Yeah.
There was a bit of crossover, wasn't there? I think Junior Euros started midweek. Am I right in thinking you didn't go to Junior Euros because you were at British? I know I saw you at British, so that would make sense. Let's just recap the weekend. Firstly, obviously, we already touched on the quality of British, the standard of British this year. Like as an athlete as well, like can't complain about anything really. Like I thought everything was well organised. The only real complaint I or anyone else had was one, the music being too loud during the weekend, and then two platforms, which it's just one of those things. It's not a big complaint in the grand scheme of things, right? How did you find British, firstly, kind of as a coach, being there all weekend?
Really, really good. Great organization. Yeah, it's kind of like when I'm there, it's kind of two-pronged. So I'm both kind of checking in and saying hello to people that are either were on the open team in the last year, or, you know, are potentially going to be on the open team this year, you know, off of like who's won the classes and that sort of stuff, if there's anyone different. And then obviously taking care of my own folks which represent some of that team, and then also just everybody else, right? We had a bunch of people at the British, which was a heck of a handful, and I had to pull in a lot of other coaches just to kind of help me organize and manage all of that stuff. But no, I mean, the standard of the meet itself was exceptional. Like I said, only real complaint is I just wish that those athletes could have had just one platform. But in terms of warm-up room, organization, wristbands, how well everything was policed, everything ran on time, emceeing was great, live streams were really, really good. I think Lucas, who does some of the social media stuff, British Powerlifting, did these really, really cool backdrops as well. And it really felt like a really big deal. Like it was like, oh, like, you know, like I don't know if anybody listening or yourself, you ever went to like a football match as a kid, but like they would have this huge screen up and like it would kind of go through like the team, and like little kids could like see their favorite player and be like, oh, that's blah 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 or whatever. So there was kind of like a vibe of that, right? Like I could imagine being, I don't know, some young kid in the audience maybe, and like seeing somebody on the backdrop and being like, oh, they look really cool, and then you watch them lift, and then now you like have a favorite lifter and you're kind of like into powerlifting a little bit more. So them creating that kind of storyboarding and stuff is really, really cool. And yeah, I mean the standard of lifting at the British, insane. Some of those classes went crazy. I mean, again, just ridiculous standards. And again, you know, they were documented really, really well. Like shout out to like people like White House Media and the SBD guys and girls, like what those people are doing in terms of like creating all this emotion around it and after the fact is amazing. So yeah, no complaints. The only complaint is that it fell at the same time as Junior Euros, which sucked. That's the first international that I've missed that had athletes at since 2017. So that was I felt pretty bad about that, but they were literally going at the same time, so I just had to go where I had more lifters. But yeah, outside of that one small thing, I lost my streak. Other than that, it's whatever.
It worked out well though. I believe if I look through this, 3 British champions under you. I think. So
oh god,
we've got Sam, Makeda, Quinn.
Yes, that sounds about right.
And then I will also just highlight, just because he can compete at the same time as me, and I love watching him compete. Also, Paul, 3 men in one flight, squatting 400 plus, unbelievable. Insane. And he absolutely gets a shout out for that. Very successful weekend for you at British though. Just have to put it out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, credit can't really directly go to me alone. The coaches that came in and helped me like did a lot of the heavy lifting that weekend. There's a huge list of them. If Kibri is listening, he'll get mad at me if I don't shout him out. So Kibri's first showing in the 74s, he came second. So we had a 1-2 in the 74s, which is really, really cool. And yeah, I mean, generally speaking, it went really, really well. There are lots and lots of different storylines there. But yeah, I mean, Paul, I absolutely adore that guy to pieces. He is such a big showman. And again, like talk about net positives for the sport. Like that guy, like talk about a poster boy, just energy is immaculate, immensely strong, so likable.
You know, my parents had that stream on because it was lifting the same time as me, and they were incredibly, they don't follow powerlifting at all, I'd say. Like, they kind of understand it. My mum understands more than my dad. I went around there a few days after I competed, and instantly they were talking about how strong AJ was and how fun Paul was. They remembered them, and obviously they remembered Ray's hype as well. And I just think like this is what will bring people, like my parents aren't going to get into the sport, but this is what brings people to the sport as like a fan as well. And it makes the stream more fun than just waiting to watch their daughter come on the screen. Like you're seeing these other people and you can't help but watch because 1, they're lifting crazy numbers, and 2, they're just such different personalities on the platform that you're kind of drawn to the stream.
The energy, right? Like, again, this is one of these things that I think that, you know, we have it in like in certain people, but I think what we're now starting to see is people are expressing themselves more and more and more. So you're seeing these lifters that are, you know, say, let's just say as an example, top 3, top 5, expressing themselves in different ways, which used to be like, it used to only happen in like bits and pieces, right? Like everybody would know about like Bobby's scream or whatever, like back in the day, and like Owen getting super hyped up or whatever. Again, Owen, I would shout him out, but like in general, like it wasn't kind of like how it is now, where you've got like 3 or 4 folks in that in each flight that are like different energies, and they're all kind of vying for that top spot, and there's lots of like different strengths and weaknesses and ways that they show up. You know, again, celebrations, stuff like that. It's really, really cool. But yeah, I mean, massively successful. I mean, I have a bit of a soft spot for like super heavyweight lifting in general, just because I can't even fathom like, yeah, I mean, you know, I can't even fathom the difference between like what a 400 kilo squat must feel like. It's just nuts to me. But yeah, I mean, none of those wins were particularly easy. I can tell you that much. You know, everybody had to work for it, but yeah, it turned out that the cookie crumbled in my favor this time, which is lucky. I'm grateful. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the 63 battle was definitely one of my favorites to watch from the whole weekend. Makeda's first British title. I think she's come second quite a few years in a row. Am I right in thinking that?
Top 3.
I know there's always a battle in the 63s.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, so many times. I actually think she's been like podium so often. Yeah, so she was like, I've just pulled up her open powerlifting. She came 3rd at British Juniors in 2018. And then she came 3rd at All Englands in 2019, 3rd at British Classic 2020, 3rd in 2021, 2nd in 2022, 3rd in 23, 2nd at Western Euros, 2nd at that selections comp that we had. Then she came 2nd in 2024. She came 2nd at Euros in 25. And then this was her first win. So yeah, I mean, she's been around forever, since 2018. And I mean, she's done some big meets. I mean, she came 2nd at Euros before she won a British. Like, she's been there, you know. She just hasn't quite strung it together. And I mean, shout out to Sabrina. Like, what an immense competitor. If you actually watch the live stream back, you can see me panic behind her doing the. She was doing like I think it was like a 222.5 kilo deadlift. And if she pulled it, she won. And I was there like, there's no way. And she got it to like her knee. And I was like, oh my God, she's going to do it. Like, Sabrina's just going to do Sabrina things, as she always does. But yeah, I mean, it worked out in the end, right? So again, got lucky this time. Yeah. Incredibly fortunate. And again, it just says to like the standards. It's just insane. You know, Makeda squatted a British record. Sabrina benched a British record. Deadlift record is like off in the sunset because it's Joy Namani. But yeah, I mean, it's just like it's insane. The level at which all these women are lifting to is crazy. And I mean, it's just so good. I mean, again, like Makeda and I had a little cry afterwards. It was such a big win for her because she'd just been at it for such a long time. And yeah, I mean, she's finally kind of punched her ticket to Worlds and a couple other things. So yeah, she's done really, really well. Yeah,
we won't obviously recap everyone, but we can't not mention the biggest deadlift we've ever seen in a competition. 84 plus, a Quinn's final pull. Unbelievable. I can't remember the exact number. Was it 288.5? 288?
288. Yeah, 288.
And she was in a battle as well with Toyosi. Like, those two battle pretty closely. Like, I think at English it was Toyosi came out on top. So this was like redemption for a Quinn.
Yeah. So I actually did her check-in this morning. It was our first one back after my Christmas break. And, you know, we were kind of talking about Worlds and results and this and that and the other, and, you know, kind of forecasting again, like her year a little bit and talking about some things. And, I mean, like I mentioned to you a little bit earlier on, you know, the level at which she can seemingly just kind of go to is just insane. You know, her and I, spoke quite a lot after All England. She didn't really show up in a way that was representative of her. I felt like I let her down quite a lot, but also, you know, we didn't bring the type of packaging that we knew we were capable of. And I kind of feel like she went on this kind of like villain arc of like, okay, I need to lock in, I need to do this, I need to do that. And showed up in a big way for the British. And I mean, Toyosi is unbelievable. Again, like, I'm so glad those two have each other, because it would be so easy for, you know, if one of them didn't exist, for the other one just to be like chilling and kind of just doing enough to win British and, you know, whatever. But what's happened is these two have just gone and just blown the roof off the thing. And you know, a Quinn, in my right mind as a coach, a Quinn was never going to deadlift that much unless Toyosi missed their last pull. So we got kind of lucky in the fact that Toyosi missed their last pull, and I was like, okay, look, I can load a Quinn up for whatever. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I was actually discussing with Matt Gary on the way in that morning into the British. And we were kind of talking about where I thought a Quinn would end up and what I thought a total would be, etc. And I was like, oh, you know, on a perfect day, she's at like 660, 665. And then she did her last warm up, and I was like, oh, okay, on her deadlift. And I was like, I think, you know, I'm going to have to change this strategy here. And then there was a little bit of like silliness going on at the table with Christian and Charlie, who were looking after Toyosi. And then we ended up having to move our opener up, which worked out fine. So we ended up moving up from, I think, original plan was like 245, and then we ended up at 250, and then we ended up going up to 255 as an opener. And then that moved so well that I was like, okay, cool, we're just going to jump to, because we already had the lead off the back of the squat. So I was like, okay, cool, we're just going to jump to a position that puts them in a bit of an awkward spot. We did that, and then Toyosi missed their last pull, and I was like, oh, I think a Quinn can just, you know, do the like an unofficial world record deadlift here, which was, yeah, absolutely nuts. And I mean, if I watch it back, I do think she's probably got, on that day, she probably had 290, 292, 295 maybe, which is insane. Now, obviously, you know, with that number, you're getting kind of close to like, is she going to be the first woman in the IPF to deadlift 300 kilos and all these kind of like grand things. And shout out to a Quinn's now husband, actually, Mark. He's one of these people who's like an oracle of like powerlifting data, right? So I come off and he's like, oh, you know, that's the biggest female total ever in British powerlifting history. And I was like, I didn't, but he was like, yeah, it's more than the equipped one, it's more than this, it's more than that, it's more than the other. Oh yeah, and I think he said to me, and I could be misquoting him, so apologies if I am, but I think he literally said that it's like possibly like the biggest female total ever in British powerlifting. Not in British powerlifting, sorry, in powerlifting in Britain. I could be wrong, but I think that's what he said to me, which was obviously crazy. It might have just been British powerlifting, but you know, to think that a Quinn's at that type of level,
and
you know,
fairly new as well. What, 3 years?
What's that, sorry?
She's still fairly new as well. It's been about 3 years. It's not, which I know in terms of powerlifting isn't new, but it's kind of new enough.
Yeah, her first competition was 2022. So yeah,
well,
yeah, May 22.
Now coming up to
430 kilos. Look at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot there. And a Quinn is kind of in a position where she's doing some amazing work. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just to think about kind of a Quinn with that side of things. Yeah, I mean, we found a really, really good, you know, rhythm. I mean, differently from like kind of the opposite storyline of Makeda though, right? Like she rocked up to her first British in 23, won. So then she won Manchester Open, then she won Westerns. So she's kind of like, when she lost to Toyosi at All England's, I think she sort of took that a little bit personally, which is okay. I'm all for it. Obviously she galvanized that into something new, and I think that, you know, I think both of those women are going to be pushing and knocking on the door of close to 700 in kind of no time, really. And again, I look at somebody like a Quinn and I'm like, this is just going to keep. I see it as like sequentially we're sort of able to slowly get better, whereas sometimes you coach people and you're like, okay, I don't really know, I don't really see in your total where we're going to have this like breakout and, you know, do the thing. Whereas like with a Quinn, I'm like, well, you're capable right now of doing 7.5 more in every single one of this. So like we're in a spot where we can just add 20 kilos kind of out of nowhere. So yeah, and again, hard work and just kind of making sure that I look after these people. More than anything, like for me as a coach, it's if I'm lucky enough to have that type of talent want to work with me, a lot of the time it's a case of like not asking them to just like lock in and go crazy for 12 months and then be fed up with powerlifting. It's like, how do I milk this for like 3 years? Because that's, you know, year 2, year 3 is when you start to see like the big strides and the big changes. And I mean, again, like a Quinn's total at British compared to last year, you know, she went from 618.5 at last year's British to 671. She had a 114.8 dots as an 84 plus is just like unheard of. You know, like to put that into context, that was like she finished 4th overall. Toyosi had a higher GL than her, but like, you know, she beat out basically everyone that isn't Bobby Joy or Toyosi. Like, you think about the caliber of people that are like lower than her in that list, and knowing that GL really doesn't favor a super heavyweight is like, it's just insane. And again, I spoke to her about that this morning. I was like, I don't think you quite realize like what you did, even though like everybody else is probably telling you how, like, this is why it's so, you know, XYZ. So yeah, very, very cool. Very, very blessed to to be surrounded by so many good lifters. Very, very fortunate. Very, very fortunate.
I think we'll slowly start wrapping up, but I would like to ask you what is coming up in 2026. Obviously, as we've said, 2025 was busy. There was a lot of travel in 2025.
Yeah.
I assume 2026 will probably be close to as busy. But yeah, what have you got coming up over the next few months?
Gosh. So I am assisting with a chap called Keenan Lee at Sheffield. So I'll be in the back.
I like that you say that as if people aren't going to know who Keenan Lee is.
Well, yeah. So I'll be assisting with Keenan at Sheffield. So I'll be helping those guys out. And then immediately after that, we've got squads at SBD HQ. Then the next thing will be Euros. So I'll be heading out as the quote unquote UK coaching lead for Team GB. So I'll be going out with those guys. From the folks that were mentioned here, Samju, 74 British champ, will be lifting it. Euros. So will Paul. Paul's part of the Euros team, and Betty. So they're like the 3 folks that I coach. And I mean, I don't know if she'll listen to this, but Caro, who I coach she's based in Copenhagen, but I always forget the country. That's Denmark, right? Yeah, so she's going to be lifting for Denmark out there in under 69. So that's super cool. And then what's after that? Right after that, mentorship launch, which we mentioned before this started. So that'd be really cool. So we've got a coaching mentorship launching directly after Euros that runs for about 6 months. And then it will be IPF Worlds, which is June. Yeah, June in Dubai. Again, should have a pretty decent sized roster of lifters for that. I think we've probably got 6 or 7 going there from my side, and probably 3 or 4 from JJ's side, which would be cool. JJ, my business partner, is the head coach of Team Singapore. So we have like a little rendezvous wherever World is every year, and we hang out and talk shop and do all that stuff. And then Junior Worlds, and then British Open in December. And then this year it's the other way around. So we have British right before Junior Euros. So I will probably be in that super heavyweight session at British, probably go to the airport that night, and then get on a plane to Slovenia and go out there and help coach with that team. Presuming I'm invited back, which I mean, I'd like to think I would be, but we'll see. So yeah, that would be my year. So yeah, a lot of travel. I've got to go to Aleko HQ somewhere in there to do my IPF coaching course as well. I think that's this half of the year, so that should be good. And you know what it's like. Something else will crop up. There'll be other things. I might be able to squeeze in a holiday there somewhere, but that's what it looked like. That was actually like my job on the Sunday before I like came back to work properly on the Monday. Was like, okay, let's map out this year. Let's see where I'm at, see where I'm going. And it's a lot, but you know, again, like I count my blessings every day, or try to remain grateful wherever I can. And it feels like a lot sometimes, but it's always worth it. And you know, you're kind of like traveling the world and doing the thing that you love and hanging out with your friends. So it's not really like I don't know. I could imagine working in an office and being like, oh, yeah, I have to go to some conference and I don't know, do something that I don't want to do, which is never what I have to do. So yeah, I'm lucky on that side of things.
Yeah, you're still going to enjoy it regardless of if you're super busy or not, right? Am I right in thinking, is this your first time coaching at Sheffield? Will this be the first time coaching at Sheffield?
I was assisting with Ade last year.
Oh yeah, of course you were.
So yeah, they have a funny rule with the Sheffield like event. So like typically, say we're at an IPF Worlds, you could have 2 coaches kind of in the coaching box and looking at stuff. For Sheffield, I think it's probably because of the constraints of the venue in and of itself. You basically kind of get left in like the basement and you're kind of watching the live stream, and then you're like doing all the spreadsheets and stuff. And With Sheffield, it's really weird because the number system is obviously like totally different. So you're working off like a percentage of the world record. So you're having to pay a lot more attention to like weird maths that you wouldn't normally need to do at a world, because it's just like, well, you're just trying to beat the other person, right? So you're just trying to total more. This is like, oh, well, they've just, you know, the 74 kilo guy's just gone and done, I don't know, 103. Now you have to go on 103.1. So we need to load this much up on this lift. And it's like, it's complicated, but it's fun. And I mean, again, get to see some of my best friends. So that side of things is really, really cool. We all end up randomly convening in Sheffield once a year and hanging out, and yeah, it's cool.
I think for people from the UK, the fact that it's in Sheffield, obviously we know why it's in Sheffield, it's like SB's headquarters, whatever, but like the fact that everyone's just meeting up in Sheffield feels like the most random thing in the world. And whenever I explain it to anyone that isn't in powerlifting what Sheffield is, their first thing is, why is it in Sheffield? Like,
yeah, it is a bit funny. And then like there's always like in and around kind of like where the city hall is, right? You always end up with like this weird congregation of like loads of people that know each other from like tons of different countries. And we're all like, oh, what's up? We haven't seen each other since, June most of the time. Most of the time IPF Worlds, get to see everyone. And then it comes back around and loads of people travel in, and, you get to hang out. And then some people go off and like have a crazy night. Other people, do whatever. But like, it's one of those things where like you bump into people from all over the world in Sheffield, which just feels so weird. But again, I think that's more of like our cognitive association with Sheffield rather than like the event itself, because the event itself is very, very cool. And again, shout out to those guys. They run such a good event. It's so well organized, and probably again the closest thing that you get to like a World Games type of thing, right? Like they put on food for you every day. There's like kind of macro tracts, like in the hotel and stuff. The hotel's a 5-minute walk from the venue. Like it's all super, super chill. It was really, really funny actually last year when we were walking over with Ade, Jason and I, and like people were like almost like knowing where the athletes were going to go, and they were like pulling us off to the side, like, oh, can we have a photo? Can we do this? Can we do that? And it was so like what is happening right now? Like we're in this weird, like Ade's kind of a celebrity. Like in my head, like he isn't, because I've known him since he was like 20 or whatever. But like, like people like will pull him aside and ask for pictures, and we'll stop him in the gym. And like we're getting to a point where like these lifters are like, like these people are like a really big deal. So like if you're a fan of the sport and you bump it, it is literally like, meeting a celebrity of sorts. So, I mean, that side of things was really, really cool to see like firsthand. Yeah. We were actually running late, typical me, Jason and Ade, but yeah, we were running late, so we couldn't actually stop. But I think that happened to quite a few people like on the way through, which was super, super cool. And then even like the White Lights Media guys and the SBD guys were like kind of paparazzi, which was kind of weird, but they were just hanging out on the street, taking pictures of people walking in, and outfit checks and all that stuff. Like there was that thing that went semi-viral of Russ like in the phone booth, like his dripped outfit and whatever last year. So yeah, I mean, it was it's cool. Again, the way that it's going, creating more and more like storyline around these lifters is only going to be good, I think, for the sport in general.
It's funny that you mentioned that as well, because I know I had a few clients come and watch me at British, and I was chatting to them at the end of the weekend, and they even said it felt really weird seeing people like, I think first one that came to mind was like people like Durins, and it's like it's kind of like they were like, it's like he's a celebrity, but like he's just here as a powerlifter. And it was like this weird dynamic of we're almost at that point where we have like, I mean, we do kind of have celebrities within our powerlifting world, right? Like, and it's just such a cool thing, because 5 years ago I just don't feel like that was such a thing. Maybe like people like a Brett Gibbs potentially, or someone like that, but that wasn't really a thing. Like when I started, I don't think that was a thing at all. Not
to the same extent. Not to like, oh, can I get a photo with you? Or, oh my God, that's blah, blah, blah over there. Like, can you believe it? Yeah, I mean, not to the same extent. I mean, even some younger folks, right? Like you've got people like Nonso and Josh are a great example of it. Like, people that have kind of like ascended almost. I mean, not that anybody's above anybody else, but they're almost known for their social media before their powerlifting stuff. A kind of bit like Russ as well in the US. Like, again, credit to him. He's done a great job of pushing the sport forward and popularizing it in a sense of like, there are other things that are attached to the sport that, there's this cool storyline around this person and what they like. And if you vibe with that or whatever, right? And you also see like mimicry sometimes. So you see sometimes that like, oh, they're clearly a fan of XYZ person because they're copying their like mannerisms.
The chains,
or they're trying to dress in like a similar way, or they're trying to do certain things a certain style. Like, I like it. Yeah. I think it's good.
I do as well.
And again, only good for the growth of the sport.
100%. Last thing to wrap up on, you briefly mentioned mentorship program in March, starting in March
Yes.
or relaunching in March.
Yep.
If people are interested, how can they reach out to you guys?
Best place to reach out to me or to Battalion Barbell is just through social media. So at Battalion Barbell, easy peasy. Battalion with 2 T's. A lot of people get that wrong. But yeah, find us on there. We've got some information about it on there. Every year, myself and JJ, kind of, it's cohort led. So whoever we have in kind of helps direct us and brings in case studies and that sort of stuff. Basically, the idea is to develop better coaches and help kind of guide people through the trials and tribulations of what it's like to be a powerlifting coach. And then we try to set everybody up with kind of like staying in contact with that cohort so that you almost have like a coaching network for a long time to bounce ideas off of and do that sort of stuff. And, you know, we try to encourage coaches to discuss issues that they're having with their lifters, whether or not that's with us privately or, you know, in front of the group. And then we also pull in a bunch of like industry professionals over that time course as well. So I think we're planning on having 3 to 5 guest speakers in this year's cohort. So last year we had a talk on sports nutrition, one on like mental preparation and kind of like sports psyche stuff as well, and we had like a physio rehab type specialist come in. Most of the time having those folks come in as kind of like, here's where your scope of practice is as a coach, here's when you might want to refer up, but here's all the things that you can do that are often missed, and trying to kind of upskill those guys in those areas, because I think coaches have a tendency to go one of 2 ways. They either like do way too much and they go way above what they're capable and qualified of doing, or they go way too far under. So they go, oh, you've got a sore shoulder, you have to see a physio. I'm not going to do any of that. And like, there's this middle ground that you can kind of meet in between. And yeah, we're just hoping to basically help kind of foster the next generation of coaches and, you know, ultimately kind of find more and more people that can kind of supersede us. So that's the aim, really. I don't want to be, you know, I mean, obviously I want to try and be the best coach I can be, but for me, there's a huge element of joy and, I suppose pride of, you know, helping generate the next generation of coaches and see them grow and see them do really, really cool things and, you know, hopefully produce more elite athletes around the world. And maybe we play a tiny little role in helping foster some of that knowledge and education and care within the athletes. Because a bit like what we said about participation in powerlifting, right? Like, if there are more good coaches out there, there are going to be more good people that stay in the sport, and thus the sport grows, which is ultimately what I want and ultimately what I think everybody benefits from.
Yeah, 100%. It all feeds into growing the sport from grassroots up.
Yeah,
Link it all back in. Look at that. Perfect. Probably wrap the episode up there. To be fair, I think we've covered a lot. I really appreciate you coming on. Cool. If anyone wants to reach you, Battalion Barbell, probably easiest place.
Yep. Battalion Barbell, or you can follow me, Peach Squats. Do you know what? That was a name that I started when I was powerlifting in like 2014, and I just never had the bottle to change it. So that's me. It's spelt really weirdly. Try and find me, I guess. If you just type in Peach into Instagram, I'll probably pop up. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.